There is a peculiar feeling we often describe as chemistry, a surge in the body, a recognition in the eyes, an electric familiarity in the voice of another. We are taught to trust it, to believe that when it strikes like lightning, it must be a sign from destiny itself. But I invite you, dear seeker, to look deeper, to ask not what you feel, but what within you is responding so feverishly. For what we call chemistry may not be divine orchestration. It may, in truth, be a summons from the unconscious, a whisper, not from the stars, but from the shadows you have long ignored. We must begin here with the nature of the psyche and its double-sided architecture. Within every man and woman lies a house divided, a conscious persona and a buried unconscious self. The latter is where your wounds dwell. The wounds of childhood unmet, the betrayals unexplained, the abandonments you never voiced. These become complexes, psychic fragments split off from the main ego, living beneath the surface, but very much alive. When you meet someone who evokes instant chemistry, it is rarely the soul speaking. It is the complex stirred. Perhaps you meet someone whose anger mirrors that of your father, or a woman whose sadness calls to the helplessness of your mother. You feel magnetized, but it is not love. It is recognition. It is your psychic scar tissue brushing against someone else's, and in that friction, the body floods with meaning, with projection. The soul cries, I know this. I've been here before, but you haven't. Not really. What you're experiencing is not new, but a repetition, a looping of the original trauma. The unconscious, desperate for integration, seeks its own repetition so that it may finally heal or destroy. So many fall into this spell. They say, I just can't explain it. There's something about them that pulls me in. Yes, there is. It is your wound calling home. In the ancient dreamscapes, such encounters were known as initiations. They forced the soul to confront what had been forgotten. But modern men, enthralled by sentimentality and illusion, calls it romance. And so we marry our complexes, we birth children within our projections. We build lives atop the echo of childhood pain, mistaking the thunder for prophecy. I do not speak this with condemnation, but with sacred urgency. For the task of the individual is not to suppress desire, but to inquire into its source, to ask, why this person, why now? What is being awakened in me? This is the Jungian path, not of denial, but of symbolic seeing. Everything is a message. Every face, a mirror, every kiss, a ritual. If only you are awake to its hidden architecture. Imagine a man who, as a child, was never seen by his mother. She was present, perhaps even loving in her duties, but she never truly looked at him, never mirrored his inner world back to him with eyes of empathy. This man grows up believing he is unremarkable, though he cannot explain why. Then, one day, he meets a woman whose gaze devours him. She sees into him, or so it seems. He feels more alive in her presence than he ever has before. He calls it chemistry. He says she is his muse. But look closer, she is not seeing him. She is seeing her own projection, just as he is seeing a mother in disguise. A second chance to be seen, to be chosen, to be finally enough. But such love is not truly about the other. It is about the self. It is about the parts of the self that remain exiled. And the tragedy is this. Once the high wears off, once the projections dissolve, the very wounds return. Intensified, he begins to feel unseen again. He accuses her of withholding. The cycle repeats. The chemistry becomes chaos. This is the alchemical fire, the burning away of illusion so that the gold of the true self may emerge. But most run from the fire. They blame the other. They look for the next high, another familiar wound to reenact. And so the soul remains asleep. What you call chemistry might be the unconscious saying, here is the one who will help you relive what you have not resolved. It is rarely comfortable. Often it is obsessive. You cannot stop thinking of them, not because of love, but because a forgotten self is demanding to be felt. That is why the breakups feel like death, why you lose not only a partner, but your very sense of identity, because you projected your lost child onto them. When they leave, it is as if your parent leaves again. The original wound reopens and the unconscious screams, let us walk deeper. In dream symbolism, the beloved often appears in disguise, sometimes as a stranger who embraces us, sometimes as a shadowy figure who watches from the corner of the room. The psyche is showing us something, that love is not just about companionship. It is a spiritual path, an invitation to reclaim the broken pieces within the anima in man, of the animals in woman. These inner figures are projected onto lovers, but unless we integrate them internally, we become addicted to their outer forms. We chase the same archetype in different bodies. We call it fate, but it is compulsion. There was once a woman in one of my sessions. She had fallen madly in love with a man who was emotionally unavailable. He was inconsistent, evasive, and dismissive. She, on the other hand, was a nurturer, a mothering spirit. She said, it's like I need to save him. I asked her, who couldn't you save when you were a child? She wept. You see, she had a brother who spiraled into addiction. She was 8. She used to stay awake at night listening for him to come home. She thought if she just loved him enough, he would stop. That wound had never healed. And now, in this man, she saw her brother again, not consciously, of course, but the body remembers, the soul remembers. And so she became addicted not to the man, but to the hope of redemption. She wanted to rescue what could not be rescued. Her love was not chemistry. It was a trauma, reenactment. We must become ruthless with our inner honesty. When you feel that irresistible pull towards someone, pause, ask, what are they awakening in me that I have not faced? Are they inviting me to grow, or are they a doorway to my unhealed grief? The answer will often surprise you. For love, true love, is quiet. It does not erupt like a volcano. It unfolds like dawn. It is not a flash of adrenaline, But a slow recognition of soul, it does not trigger your panic. It calms it. It does not inflame your insecurity. It holds it. But this kind of love can only be received by a self that has done its inner work. Otherwise, we will reject it. We will say it is boring. We will crave the highs and lows, not realizing we are craving our own trauma. This is why many chase intensity. They confuse it for intimacy, but intensity is often chaos, a drama between two unhealed inner children playing grown-up games. Real intimacy is different. It requires vulnerability, not just seduction. It requires you to see not only the other, but your own projections upon them. So many come to me and say, why do I keep attracting the same kind of person? But they are asking the wrong question. The better question is, what within me keeps responding to the same kind of wound? For life does not send you partners, it sends you mirrors. And if you refuse to look into them, you will keep smashing them, bleeding on the shards and calling it fate. To transcend this cycle, one must descend first into the underworld of the self, into the dreams that disturb your peace, into the fantasies that betray your longing, into the archetypes that govern your patterns. Only then does the light emerge, not from the sky, but from within. This is the individuation process, the sacred becoming of the whole self, and it requires sacrifice, the sacrifice of illusions, of projections, of false chemistry. There is no formula for who you should love, but there is a compass. It is found in your dreams, your shadows, your body's truth. It is found in your willingness to ask, am I relating from my essence or from my emptiness? The former liberates, the latter binds. Dear Seeker, this is your task, not to find the one who completes you, but to become the one who is no longer fragmented. And from that wholeness, you will see love not as intoxication, but as awakening, not as escape, but as homecoming. When we walk the road of individuation, we must be prepared to betray the ego's infatuation. For the ego is seduced by familiarity. It will call the chaotic dance of unhealed patterns a divine encounter, but the self, the deeper sacred self, sees differently. It waits, it listens, it watches the dream behind the attraction. Have you ever dreamt of a lover you once adored, long after they were gone? Perhaps they appeared cold, or perhaps they held you in a way they never did while awake. These dreams are not mere memory. They are the psyche's final attempt to resolve what remain fragmented. Dreams do not care for sentiment. They seek wholeness, and when a dream reveals to you what the waking world refused, you are being offered the chance to step out of the loop, to make the unconscious conscious. I once worked with a man who repeatedly fell for women who criticized him. He called them strong, powerful, independent. But over time, the attraction gave way to deep insecurity. He would shrink, feel unworthy, become silent. I asked him to recall his earliest memory of being made to feel small. He paused. Then came the tears. At age 5, he had drawn a picture of a bird and proudly shown it to his mother. She said, Birds don't have ears like that. Why didn't you draw it properly? He had never drawn again. That wound became the template for his desire. He longed to be seen as capable, yet he kept choosing women who unconsciously mirrored that moment, who made him doubt his worth. All in the name of chemistry. The psyche is precise. It does not forget. What you think is your type may actually be your trauma, sculpting desire into its own image. You may say, I'm just drawn to people who don't need me. And I will ask, when did needing someone first become dangerous? Because often we are not choosing partners from our present self, but from the self that was never allowed to speak, to cry, to be fragile. Unhealed trauma distorts the lens through which we interpret attraction. It creates urgency, obsession, irrational hope. It turns us into archetypal actors on a mythic stage, the savior, the victim, the orphan, the seductress, the martyr. Each one of these roles carries a wound, and that wound seeks resolution through others. But no one can carry your archetype for you. If you cast them as your rescuer, they will eventually fall. If you need them to play your mother, your father, your redeemer, they will disappoint you, because you are asking a human to do the work of God. This is the root of disillusionment. We expect healing from chemistry rather than from consciousness. We want the rush to wash away our loneliness. We want the kiss to erase our history. But it cannot. The unconscious does not yield to kisses. It yields only to awareness. Do not fear the disillusionment. It is sacred. It means the spell is breaking. When you look at someone you once idolized and see them for who they truly are, not who you needed them to be, you are awakening. That heartbreak is not punishment. It is purification. The ego laments the loss of fantasy, but the soul rejoices at the return of truth. Let us speak of the shadow, for where there is intense attraction, there is often an unintegrated shadow. Perhaps you are drawn to someone whose confidence dazzles you. It may not be chemistry. It may be that you have disowned your own confidence, buried it long ago beneath shame or fear, and now it appears before you, walking in another's body, shining with the light you forgot you carried. You do not love them. You crave your shadow. Likewise, if you find yourself repulsed by someone's vulnerability, it may not be their weakness that offends you, it may be your own vulnerability, still rejected, still unresolved. The people who trigger us most profoundly are often carrying the parts of us we refuse to welcome. And so the question becomes, what part of me is trying to come home through this person? Love, true love, is the acceptance of the other as they are, without the need for them to fulfill our unlived life. That kind of love is rare, because it requires the death of projection. It requires you to say, you are not my mother, you are not my father, you are not my salvation. You are simply yourself, and I will choose to know you not as an echo, but as a being. But to do this, you must first know yourself. You must walk through the labyrinth of your psyche, tracing the minotaur of your fear, the sirens of your longings, the serpents of your betrayal. Only then can you sit with another and not demand they fix what they did not break. Many think healing means no longer being attracted to the wrong people, but healing in truth, means knowing why you are attracted and choosing differently. It means feeling the pull of the familiar trauma, recognizing it, and lovingly saying, no, you may still feel the chemistry, but you will no longer be its slave. This is the path of mastery, not over others, but over the inner world. The soul's sovereignty begins when you can say, I see what's happening here. I feel the old wound stirring, but I will not let it dictate my future. There is no quick fix for this. It takes years, sometimes decades. You will fail, you will choose from the wound again. But each time you wake up a little sooner, each time you recover a little faster, each time the spell breaks a little more easily. And slowly, a new kind of attraction begins to form, one not rooted in urgency, but in resonance, not in projection, but in presence. You will find yourself drawn to those who do not trigger your panic, but who hold space for your calm. You will choose not from desperation, but from depth. This kind of relationship may not start with fireworks. It may not feel like a movie, but it will feel safe, and in that safety, your nervous system will learn what it never knew, that love can be steady, that love can be honest, that love can grow, and if you are very lucky and very brave, you will look back on all the ones who broke you, and you will see them not as villains, but as teachers. Each one brought you closer to yourself. Each one mirrored a part of your soul's architecture, and in that seeing, you will forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. The true work of love begins the moment the spell breaks, not when you are swept off your feet, but when you finally plant them on the ground and see the other clearly, not through the haze of longing or the fog of past wounds, but through the clarity of consciousness. Then, and only then, can relationship become sacred. To live unconsciously is to repeat. To live consciously is to transform. And nowhere is this alchemy more profound than in the realm of love and desire. It is the crucible where the self is either fragmented or forged. There is a secret the world does not speak of. You are often most drawn to the one who will help you reenact your oldest wound. You say, they feel like home, but what is home? If home was the place you first learned to abandon yourself. The body remembers, the nervous system remembers, the pattern repeats, not because you are weak, but because the psyche longs for resolution. It keeps returning to the scene of the original wound, hoping that this time it will end differently. But the ending cannot change unless you do. When a woman feels chemistry with a man who is emotionally unavailable, she may think he's mysterious. He just needs time. But the deeper truth may be that, as a child, her own father was present in body but absent in spirit. His love was like fog present but untouchable. And so she seeks that which feels familiar, not because it is healthy, but because it mirrors her earliest blueprint of love, to chase, to prove, to wait, to argue, until she sees the pattern. She cannot change it. Until she holds her own inner child and says, you no longer need to earn love, she will continue to reenact her own abandonment. You see, The greatest illusion in relationship is that the other is the cause of our suffering. But the other is only the activator. The origin lies deeper in the unconscious, in the personal mythos etched into your bones. Every attraction is an activation, every rejection a redirection, every heartbreak a revelation. This is why relationship is the most potent ground for transformation. Not because of how it fulfills you, but because of how it exposes you. Nothing shows you your shadow like intimacy. Nothing reveals your inner child like the face of your beloved. So let us speak now of projection. Projection is the unconscious act of seeing your own inner content, your wounds, desire, archetypes on another person. It is not inherently bad. In fact, it is a necessary function of consciousness. We cannot perceive anything unless it already lives within us. But when projection becomes possession, when we believe the image we see is the truth of the other, we enter dangerous territory. In the beginning of a relationship, you do not see the other person, you see your fantasy, your lost mother, your vanished father, your savior, your persecutor, your hero, your wound. And this is why the disillusionment stage is sacred. When the fantasy begins to collapse, you are given the first real opportunity to choose to love the real person, or to grieve the image and move on. Do not resist the disillusionment. It is not the end, it is the invitation. The ego screams, they've changed. But in truth, they have not changed. You are simply starting to see them as they are. And this is where real love can begin, but only if you have eyes to see. The spiritual journey is not linear. It spirals. You may heal one layer of abandonment, only to meet another. You may fall again, project again, hurt again. But each time you descend a little deeper, each time the mirror becomes clearer. Each time you reclaim another lost part of yourself. This is what it means to love with awareness. To say, I know I'm drawn to you, but I will not let my wounds decide. I will sit with my longing. I will hold my panic. I will listen to my dreams. The dreams always speak. They tell you when something is off. They show you symbols, a locked door, a dark house, a forgotten child. Do not dismiss them. The psyche speaks in symbols, not in logic. It reveals what your conscious mind refuses to see. There was once a woman who dreamed of a river she could not cross. On the other side stood a man she longed to reach. Each night she tried to cross, but the current was too strong. When we explored this dream, she realized the river was her fear. The man was not real. He was the embodiment of a longing she had buried. She kept seeking him in others, but what she truly needed was to cross the river. Within every dream is a doorway, and behind that door is the truth your waking self is not yet ready to face. If you listen long enough, if you dare to descend, the psyche will guide you home, not to the fantasy of another, but to the wholeness of your own being. And from that place, love becomes something else entirely. It becomes spacious, not consuming, steady, not stormy, awake, not addicted. You will still feel attraction, but it will not be laced with desperation. You will still feel longing, but it will not drown you. You will still feel chemistry. But you will ask, is this chemistry or a call to heal? This question alone can change your life. It pulls you out of the trance. It makes you a witness to your own myth. And once you see your myth, you are no longer ruled by it. You become the author, the alchemist, the sovereign. This is not the story the world tells. The world tells you to follow your heart, to chase butterflies, to trust the spark, but the soul says otherwise. The soul says, go inward first. See where the spark is leading you. Feel the wound behind the flutter. Sit in the silence before you speak the vow. This is the path of mature love, not the romance of fairy tales, but the union of two awakened hearts, each whole unto themselves, each choosing the other without need, without illusion, without possession. And in such a union, chemistry becomes something new. It is no longer fire that burns, it is fire that warms. It is not a hurricane, it is a sacred hearth. And around that hearth, two souls may sit not to complete each other, but to accompany each other on the long road home, when you no longer mistake the burn of trauma for the warmth of love. You begin to see the faces around you differently. You begin to hear the stories beneath the surface. And most of all, you begin to meet yourself, not as the fragmented sum of other people's impressions, but as a unified soul returning from exile. The one who betrayed you in the past was not just a person. They were the emissary of your own unconscious, sent not to destroy you, but to awaken you. Every heart that shattered you held in their hands a mirror, reflecting the parts of you you had not yet reclaimed. The woman who belittled you reflected your disowned self-worth. The man who abandoned you mirrored your own rejection of your inner child. The lover who used you revealed how much of yourself you still believed was unworthy of cherishing. Do not curse them. See them. Thank them if you can, for they carried the painful medicine of awareness. And now, because of them, you are standing at the threshold of a deeper truth. This is the threshold. The alchemist knows well where base metal becomes gold, not through addition, but through transmutation. And what is transmuted in this fire is not your love, but your illusion. Illusion is not evil. It is a veil the soul wears until it is ready to bear the naked light of truth. And truth, true seeing, is always more humbling than fantasy. It will tell you that the love you craved from others must first be given inward, that the chaos you romanticized was your own nervous system trying to find familiar territory, that the ache you felt was not for someone else, but for the lost part of you crying out to be remembered. Once you turn toward that cry, the whole inner landscape changes. You begin to feel the difference between hunger and resonance, between obsession and intimacy, between being seen and being projected upon. And slowly, the psyche softens. The dreams begin to shift. You are no longer chasing unreachable figures. You are no longer drowning in dark waters. You begin to walk through forests instead, your own inner wilderness. You begin to speak with symbols, not run from them. You begin to stand in the presence of your own soul, unafraid. This is not the end of longing. Longing will always exist, but it changes shape. It becomes less about getting and more about being, less about possession and more about witnessing, less about finding someone to heal your pain, and more about being someone who holds their own pain with sacred hands. In this place, love is born again, not from fantasy, but from truth. It might come quietly, a glance across a room that feels not like a spark, but like an exhale, a conversation that feels not like lightning, but like the settling of the earth, a touch that does not ignite chaos, but settles your breath into your body. You may not even notice it at first, because the nervous system, long conditioned to equate intensity with affection, does not know what to do with peace. But peace is what you were always looking for beneath every spiral, every cry, every high and crash. You were searching for a love that did not vanish, a presence that did not punish you for having needs, a home where you did not have to earn the right to rest. When you find that, or when you become that for yourself, the old stories lose their grip. The roles no longer fit. You do not need to be the rescuer. You do not need to be rescued. You do not need to seduce or perform or shrink. You can simply be, and in that being, something ancient heals. You are no longer at war with your past. You no longer chase ghosts. You no longer conflate the rush of cortisol with the balm of devotion. The chemistry you once trusted is replaced with discernment. The trauma you once disguised as destiny is replaced with conscious choice, and from that choice, new paths open. You may choose to walk alone for a time, not out of bitterness, but out of reverence for your own becoming. Or you may walk with another, not because you need them to complete you, but because your wholeness makes room for their own. Either way, you are no longer asleep. You are awake, and that, dear soul, is the goal of all true relating, not to lose yourself in another, but to meet yourself through them. Let us end. Then, not with instruction, but with blessing, may you see the masks you once fell in love with, and may you forgive yourself for mistaking them for the divine. May you meet your longing not with shame, but with curiosity. May you follow the thread of your chemistry, not into repetition, but into revelation. May your body become a trusted compass, not a haunted house. May your shadow walk beside you, not behind you. May you no longer fear stillness, peace, quiet love. And when love comes not as fire, but as a steady flame, may you recognize it not with panic, but with gratitude. You are not broken for having mistaken pain for love. You were simply faithful to the story you were given. But now you are writing a new one. Let it be sacred. Let it be slow. Let it be real.